Imagine with me for a moment that you're on this creative high. You're producing piece after piece of epic artwork. Your sketchbook practice has never been more prolific. You're making leaps and bounds in learning the fundamentals. The motivation is high, the discipline is strong, and you're absolutely crushing it as an artist. Now, we all love these seasons of our creativity where it feels borderline effortless and you're completely in the zone day after day after day. And then life happens. Your kid gets sick and you're dedicating all of your time to taking care of them. Finals are coming up at university and you're spending almost every free moment studying. Or a chronic illness flare-up hits you like a freight train and you're stuck in bed for a week. Sometimes life things get in the way. We've all been there. And now you're left wondering how in the world you can keep your creative momentum going. Never fear, my creative friend. We're gonna get through this together. So while we paint this cozy little tree guy, we're gonna chat about 3 ways we can make our creativity a priority and keep that momentum going strong when the life things come crashing in. Number 1, setting a small goal. You've heard of SMART goals? Welcome to small goals. We're going to take the first 3 parts of the SMART method for setting a goal and tweak the ending just a little bit. First of all, your goal has to be specific. To say,
I'm going to be creative every day for a week,
isn't really specific. There are countless ways you could be creative during that week, and let's be honest, when we're low on time or energy, we don't really have a lot of brain space to make big decisions. To have to show up every day with absolutely no idea how you're gonna be creative is a recipe for quitting within the first couple of days. To say,
I'm going to sketch an animal every day for a week,
now that's specific. You can show up each day knowing that all you have to do is sketch an animal. You've narrowed your subject down to something specific, and specific is the first step to setting yourself up for success. Next up is measurable. We gotta have a way to actually track our progress and make sure we're meeting our goal. Painting 1 portrait every weekday is a measurable goal, because at the end of the week, you're either gonna have 5 new portrait paintings or you're not. Either way, you can track whether you met your goal or not, and if you didn't, you can ask yourself why you didn't. What was the roadblock that kept you from achieving that goal? Next up is actionable. Now this ties right into what we were just talking about with not meeting your goal. Because the reality is, sometimes we set loftier goals than we can reasonably achieve. I'm quite guilty of this. My appetite for goals is often far bigger than my capacity to meet them. So when in doubt, undercommit. Now that might sound like laziness, but hear me out, it's actually very wise. Let's say you've set the goal to spend 3 hours painting every day for a month. You really want to grow your painting skills, and the more time you can dedicate to it, the more you're gonna grow, right? Excellent, in theory. This goal might be achievable for the first week or so, but inevitably, life things are going to happen, and a bigger goal like that is probably not gonna be sustainable. All of a sudden, you've missed 1 day, then 2 days, now a week, and now you're thinking,
well, if I can't paint for 3 hours today, I might as well not paint at all because it isn't going to count towards my goal.
It's important to remember that bigger is not necessarily better. It's far more important to set an intention that you can achieve. Because when the life things start to get in the way of that big goal and you start missing a few days here and there, you're gonna get really, really frustrated, and both your momentum and your motivation are going to tank. So by checking ourselves in the beginning and setting a goal that we can consistently and sustainably meet, pretty much no matter the circumstances we're faced with, we're setting ourselves up for success. So in my last video, we talked a little bit about the goal I've set for myself to keep my own creative momentum going right now. My goal is to spend 10 minutes in my messy sketchbook every day for 2 weeks to nurture my love for my creativity and my willingness to show up for it. That is a very lackluster goal in terms of scale, but it's actionable for me, and I've actually been seeing a pretty significant amount of progress from it. I'm feeling much less resistance about opening up my sketchbook in the first place, and I'm finding myself reaching for it a lot more often. Sometimes I end up spending an hour or 2 in it, and sometimes I only spend the 10 minutes. But I'm able to meet that goal every day because I can always find 10 minutes on any given day. That 10 minutes might be sketching during movie night or getting up a few minutes earlier to sketch because I know I'm going to be out for most of the day, but it's still an actionable goal. So here's where we veer off a little bit from the typical SMART method. Next up is limited. Creativity thrives in limitations. It sounds counterintuitive, but when we have confines to work within, we're actually much more creative. It comes down to the paradox of choice. Having too many options paralyzes us from choosing any of them. So here's a little excerpt from a Very Big Brain article on what's going on in the brain when we set constraints. When faced with limitations, the brain engages in lateral thinking, a cognitive process that involves finding creative solutions by approaching problems from new, unorthodox angles. They force you to think differently, to shift from what's obvious and dive into the hidden layers of a problem. Now, limitations could look like many different things. You could limit your subject matter. You could limit yourself to only using printer paper and a ballpoint pen. You could set a time limit that you can only draw for a certain length of time on any one drawing before you move on to the next. For me, I set the limitation of working only in my messy sketchbook and only using my pencils and blending stump. My purpose here is to explore, not to make finished pieces. Some of my other sketchbooks are quote-unquote prettier, I guess, and I'm much more likely to try to make something like worthy of a YouTube video or an Instagram post, rather than just making some messy sketches and having playtime. By only working in my messy sketchbook for this goal, I'm putting myself in the headspace for play and limiting myself to just making messes. And by limiting my medium, I don't have to sit and wonder what tools I'm gonna use. I can just grab these few supplies and head out to sketch on the couch with Annie Jane. And lastly, lovable. Pull out the grater, cause I'm bringing out the cheese, y'all. But truly do make your goal something that you love. Don't just set a goal for the sake of momentum. Do it because you truly love your creativity and you wanna nurture it. Set a goal that gives you that little spark of joy. If you love drawing animals but haven't really had a lot of time lately, make that your goal. If watercolors ignite that happy little creative fire in you, then set a goal to paint a couple of watercolor pieces each week. Make this goal something that you love, something that resonates with who you are as an artist, your own tastes, your own style. The purpose of setting this goal isn't to master a fundamental or level up your anatomy skills by leaps and bounds. It's to simply love your creativity and keep the creative momentum going. But let's say you do want to work on your skills. You want to improve at gouache painting or get better at drawing buildings. This brings us to our second way to keep the momentum going. Number 2, studies. So when I'm struggling to keep my creative practice going, it's not family obligations or traveling or local events that typically prevent me from being creative. It's illness. Maybe I'm in a really big fatigue flare-up and I'm struggling to get anything done. Maybe I'm down with another wicked case of bronchitis and spending my day on the couch doing breathing treatments every other hour. Chronic illness and its many, many symptoms are the biggest roadblock for my own creativity. And in times like this, I have basically no mental power to come up with my own ideas. But no matter what roadblock puts you in that same headspace, don't despair. You can still prioritize your creativity by focusing on practice over ideation. Brainstorming ideas requires its own stock of energy, and if you're already down, chances are your brainstorming powers will be too. So on these days, I like to focus on practicing technique or studying something. Practicing line work on sketches I've already done in the past, finding cool plant photos on Pinterest and simplifying them into basic shapes. Picking an animal and filling a sketchbook page with studies of it, or maybe you find a painting tutorial and follow along with it. That way you're not having to compose a scene and invent the lighting yourself, but you can still learn by following someone else's direction. If you're enjoying watching me paint this gouache tree vignette, you might enjoy following along with this vignette painting tutorial. It's a mini course perfect for spending a cozy and creative afternoon when you're low on time or energy. Throughout the PDF, I'll walk you through from some helpful warm-ups, to sketching the scene, to developing your toolkit, all the way to finishing the piece. But don't worry, if you're a visual learner like me and need to see that painting action in real time, you'll also have access to the exclusive hour-and-a-half painting process video. By following tutorials like these to grow your painting skills or studying from reference photos to familiarize yourself with a certain subject, you're still moving the needle, but you aren't putting added pressure on yourself to come up with your own ideas. But let's be honest, there are some days where you literally do not have any time or any energy, like zero. So how can you do a little something for your creativity on days like these? Number 3, fill your creative cup. This is the taking in part when you have nothing to pour out. Maybe you don't have any energy to create, but you have some time to flip through your art book collection. Never underestimate the power of simply looking at someone else's art. While you may not physically be creating something, you're observing creativity and filling up your own creative cup. You're finding inspiration in someone else's artwork. You're observing their technique, their line work, their brushstrokes. You're reading about their own creative process and how they face their own unique challenges. Or maybe you scroll through Pinterest collecting some reference photos of things you want to study when you do have more time and energy. Your creative brain sees those photos and already starts doing a little bit of problem solving on how to sketch the perspective of the buildings or analyzing how the facial anatomy of one animal differs from another. Maybe you watch a Proco video on perspective, or a Marco Bucci video on values, or an Alison Aletha video on color theory. When we don't have the time or don't have the energy, we can keep our creative momentum going by simply filling our cup with information and inspiration that we can implement into our creative practice when we do have the energy and time. Now, I do want to add a caveat here. This is a relatively low-hanging fruit to reach for, which is absolutely fine for those low days. But sometimes we reach for the low-hanging fruit simply because it doesn't require much effort on our part. We might start off in this cup-filling space with good intentions while we're in a low day or string of days, but if we aren't careful, we can fall into the trap of just staying there. We still need to take advantage of high-energy days when they come, to take advantage of the days that we do have more time to create. Because when we're always reaching for the low-hanging fruit in our creative practice and not challenging ourselves to grow, we can very, very easily slip into a resistance rut. And let me tell you, those are hard to climb out of. That's what I'm currently dealing with, and if you want to hear more about that journey, you can watch this video. The truth is, the creative practice is not easy. It can be frustrating and difficult, even more so when we're running low on time or energy. But I hope these tips were helpful for you and encouraged you that you can keep your creative momentum going even in these circumstances. We just have to be a little bit more clever and intentional in doing so. Anywho, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed watching me paint this little gouache vignette. I, for one, had a lot of fun painting it. It was one of those simple joy paintings for me. Very low pressure, no need to build some fantastic scene. Just me enjoying my own creative practice. And huge thank you to the Cozy and Curious Creatives over on Patreon for helping to support that creative practice. Our community's grown a lot there over the last couple of months, and it truly does mean the world to me that y'all want to be involved in my art journey. If you're interested in seeing a totally different facet of my creative practice, then head on over to watch this video next. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye guys!